Hello, guys. I am Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. I'm here with a beautiful, lovely, sometimes she's been known to make this here man a sandwich, wife of mine, light of my life, Yanzi.
Hi.
And today is the day we're here once again, guys, with more decimated DC news as DC Comics forgot how to crisis. So here we go. So there is this thing, a bit of a crisis, dark crisis, and death of the Justice League. Now, the crisis here is identity crisis, because identity politics is what DC Comics is all about now, with such characters as Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. But before we get into it, please look down below, hit like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, help this here channel out. So for people that don't know, Superman's bisexual. Amazon,
Yara Flores is
Woman's
lambasted by all the Brazilians. They're like, oh, that's such terribly racist, this picture of her. But, never mind, whatever.
Right. Batman is not Bruce Wayne anymore, but Fox, a black guy. Like everything's different. That's all you need to know. The DC Comics are used to looking at the iconic superheroes from high above do not look recognizable anymore. This is for a couple of reasons. We've talked about it here on this channel, but it is a way to make a derivative version of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, things DC Comics will outright own once these characters start to become public domain over the next few years. What's going on here is DC Comics did say, hey, it's the anniversary of Death of Superman. What better to do than to just kill the Justice League? But except for one member, because you have to have somebody to tell the story. So people were like, you're really going to kill the Justice League? Yeah, it's going to be better than the death of Superman, which nobody believes. But they sold it that way, actually. And I can't even make that up. That is the selling point for Death of the Justice League. Is like,
no, the pitch was like, oh, you remember Death of Superman? What a big deal it was. We're going to make it even better and bigger than that. We're going to kill the whole Justice League. That was how they marketed it.
Yeah, that's it. We can't even make this shit up. So what's going on here is there is a Dark Crisis event. Now, what's going on here, Yanzi?
This Dark Crisis event is basically, as you said, Justice League, the entire team, as you know, is going to die in issue number 75 in April. So everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be replaced with this new Justice League, which is pretty much the identical roster to what we saw in the Justice League in the Future State when they ran the event back in February last year. But the big issue here, as a lot of people are noticing though, especially when the May and June solicit came out, is that, wait a minute, if Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne, Diane Prince are all dead, why are they still running around in their books in their May and even June issues? Like, isn't that kind of like an antithesis of what the DC meaning of crisis is? Because usually when you talk about DC crisis event, it encompasses the whole line, right? Like basically, if Superman is dead here, that means that Batman acknowledges it in his book as well, and all that stuff. Isn't that usually what happens?
Right. Usually, a crisis is an event that will affect the whole DC Comics universe. Okay, that's the idea of crisis. If you see these characters singing and dancing in other titles, obviously it didn't have a big effect. So there you go. Like, that's the issue. Does an event matter when you can look to the left and right and see everybody's fine? Well, how do you sell the event? And what is happening here is obviously a bit of, what would you call, mismanagement of DC editorial. It is obviously failing DC, sure, but they're failing fans and are basically failing the idea of there even being a crisis. A book that's supposed to have ramifications across the line of DC Comics superheroes. It's supposed to rock these heroes to the core, but obviously not.
Well, I think the issue here is that the publisher themselves, they realize that whoopsie poopsie, it looks like Batman and Bruce Wayne is still running around in May and June. Gosh, how do we resolve all these problems? I know, we'll just say that the death of the Justice League happened a bit in the future of the DC. We're not going to tell you when the bit is exactly. We'll just say it's somewhere, it's like this vague somewhere point in time. So yes, you're seeing a future event where all these people in the Justice League die. But right now, no, they're okay. They're fine. They're alive.
They did this with Future State, and I'm not going to get comic book nerd here and argue this, but I can't help but understand the factor here is how the sausage is made. Now, the idea of doing this future event that hypothetically is maybe going to happen or maybe not, which is how they sold Future State, and you're going to do a crisis this way, I call bullshit on it for a couple of reasons, because something like this takes core management skills. And that's the whole reason there to be a DC Comics, is to manage these characters, this line, this brand. And, you know, like when I worked at DC Comics in the bad office one time, I think like Barbara Gordon had a broken arm. And what happens is whoever's working on Birds of Prey sends out an email to everybody in DC Comics, the editorial, not talent. And everybody knows from this month to this month, if Barbara Gordon happens to pop up in your book, she has a cast on her right arm or whatever the case is. And that's it. And that's all it really took. It's not a hell of a lot of management. Now, when you're doing something like an event, not just a character having a broken arm or something, yes, that takes a lot more management, sure. But that's the whole point of doing an event, is there's an effect throughout the whole DC universe, and a lot of group meetings and all of this. And this is a very telling point that this is a consequence of what I see as a DC Comics bloodbaths. The bloodbaths that's happened, the downsizing of DC Comics by AT&T, now sold off to Discovery to probably be downsized once more. They're getting kicked out in the street. They ain't got no office space. Why give them office space if they can't even get an event to line up across the board? Like, and here's where this argument goes. If they can't even manage an event to have an effect throughout all these characters, titles, and books, why even have a DC Comics staff? At that point, you should be licensing this out to Random House, Penguin, IDW. Probably they're losing their cool teenage boy like demographic stuff like Transformers, G.I. Joe. You got Dynamite. Somebody will pick this up and do it right. Sure, they won't make 52 books a month. They'll probably make like 10, but those 10 books will line up. Why I call bullshit is because saying, well, this is an event, but it happens to be somewhere else down the line is hypothetically like saying it's an Elseworld title. Nothing against Elseworld titles. I mean, I've worked on like Superman Earth 1 that was its own little pocket book. Those things are fine, but not for a crisis. That takes a leak on any crisis that happened, whether it's Crisis at Infinite Earths, Identity Crisis. Doesn't matter what you really think of these crisis events, but they're there and they do mean something in the DC Comics universe.
I think the issue is that when you say crisis, people immediately expect it to affect the whole line. They expect every single book in the whole DC universe to all kind of reflect what's happening. So imagine the disconnect when you say, okay, well, Superman is dead. But no, look over here in his own book, Superman is on War World or something like that. It's like, all right.
And this is an argument. People say death doesn't really matter in comics. Used to, people cared and talked about stuff like that. Now they all talk about, you know, identity politics, what's the sexuality of Superman, things like that. But the reality is when you can see a headstone here and the character singing and dancing over here in the same month, obviously death doesn't matter. And if death to this intellectual property doesn't matter, then the property doesn't matter. But it hasn't really mattered in a while anyways. Everything's become like a virtue signal, a shout out to whatever hashtag is out there. We want to seem like we're really appreciative of you type months. Like months where we just celebrate a group of people for no reason besides it's marked on the calendar. Things like that. And they did a Black History Month special that didn't ship on time. I mean, this company is not managing itself right. And this is something people are like, no, comics are fine. They're getting evicted, but they're going to a better building, Shane. You're just sounding like Comicsgate. You're just this. Dude, there is something really wrong with DC editorial right now. Now, can they handle this? Maybe they're understaffed. Maybe the staff they have are absolutely incompetent. There are a couple of reasons here. Neither are good, because in the end, the new owners of DC Comics, which are already acquisitions happen, they own it. They're going forward with it, and they're already talking about how much in budget cuts they're saying they want?
$3 billion in cuts, and that's a conservative estimate. They believe more than that can be done. I want to be a little bit more charitable. I want to say, because DC has undergone not one, not two, but 3 bloodbaths, they probably are understaffed, and that's probably what's causing people to be running around not being able to keep up with continuity. I want to be more charitable and say that.
Well, you know, if we're talking about charity, I mean, I obviously don't need any charity. Inglorious Rex is $251,400. This is a 252 campaign. I can feel it. I'm going to leave you guys with the trailer below. Please share it out. Help this channel. Leave me a comment below. Do you think we're on the mark here with DC Comics? Let me know your thoughts on this. And also share the video. It helps the channel out a lot. And we will catch you guys again with another video.
Pardon me and my tone. You can't step to my throne. They ain't working like me. I did this on my own. You asking where we been, huh? I don't know where to begin, huh? All this dirt on my skin. I just came here to win. I'm more than a man, I'm a monster. Somebody call a pastor, doctor. I got a 6 sense for imposters. So now I'm coming for the whole roster. It's not a game, why you playing with me? You could double back, lose track, try and hang with me. It must be in my veins, something you can't tame, cause I break the game. Can't control me. I got the power, I got the keys, cause I break the chains. They try to hold